to the Needlebug. This is Karen. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by and coming to see what we're all about. I hope you like what you see and you want to come back again to visit. If you're returning, thank you so much for hanging out with me and coming back to stitch with me. I really appreciate it, and thank you guys for all your kind and wonderful comments. It's so rewarding to hear the things that you guys have to say, and I really do appreciate each and every one of them and really enjoy the questions and getting to interact with you. Please, if I don't answer your question on your comment on YouTube, don't take that as I'm not going to get back to you. What I have done is I save a lot of those questions to answer when I'm recording a video. So you will get an answer, and I have some today that we're going to give answers to. As you can see, there's a different project under the camera today. And this is Window with a View. And I started it to alternate with Stitcher's Retreat. You know, sometimes, as I said before, you just need to look at something different. You need to look at some different colors, and I don't switch it up a whole lot, but every now and again, I just have to have something new and different to stitch on. So this week, we're going to work on Window with a View. And the reason I picked this is because I've had a few questions on how do you switch from, say, cross country to stitching on the diagonal, or from stitching in vertical columns to stitching on the diagonal. And this was one I had started, and you can see a little bit here that I was doing it in vertical columns. And as we all know, diagonal has become my favorite. So just to give you a little idea, see if I can get this under the camera here without bumping it around. What I did on my Goodreader app is oh my, that's too blurry. Let me back this out so hopefully you can see it. Let me switch here. Okay. What I did on Goodreader is I just drew my diagonal lines, and there is a video on using, oh good Lord, on using Goodreader on your iPad. So I just drew my diagonal lines, and now what I'm doing is just stitching within each diagonal. When I get down here to an area, where I have part of it filled in, I'm really just filling in the blanks. So no matter what method you used before that you're now switching to on the diagonal, it's just really a matter of drawing your lines, work on the diagonal, and when you get to that part that has stitching done, you really just are filling in the blank spaces so that you eventually, as you keep going in that method, will eventually have everything on the diagonal. So that's what I'm doing on this one because, don't want to stitch in columns, vertical columns anymore. I really do at this point prefer stitching on the diagonal. And as we've talked before, I have switched around and done all kinds of different things. and still find that I am always going back to diagonal stitching. It's more systematic. And that's what I am looking for, and that's what I need to stay focused, know where I'm at, not get lost in the pattern, not be making a gazillion mistakes and all that other good stuff. I really like it to be very systematic and, in a sense, oh, Brenda, stop playing. My friend is playing Words with Friends, and it keeps popping up on my screen every once in a while. And I forgot to put it in airplane mode, so I do apologize for that. If you see it come up, I'll try and get rid of it off the screen as soon as possible. Oh, yeah. So I hope that answers that question on how you switch from one method to the other. You just mark your diagonal lines and fill in the blanks and go for it. So hopefully that helps. Another question I had is from Jill H. And she's asking how I tackle the situation. And I think I understand her question, but just to be sure. And Jill, if I get this wrong, please let me know and I'll try and give you a better answer. But I think her question is, if we're stitching this way on the diagonal, okay? However, if a particular color ends up traveling more this direction, outside of this diagonal, and that's the way the color flows, all right? What do I do in that situation? Do I end the thread or do I park it in the adjacent diagonal? Well, Jill, what I do is I stick within my current diagonal. And if I have stitched all the stitches of that particular color in that diagonal, I will end my thread. For the simple reason is if I would park over in here in this next diagonal, then I'm getting again to that point of where I have too many threads hanging, and that literally makes me a little bit crazy. So I stick and work within that diagonal, and really the only time that I will park it in the adjacent diagonal is when I'm starting a page and you have these very short diagonals. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to end it off and then jump over 10 stitches and start it again. There at the top of a page, I will carry it over. But if I'm working in, say, one of the longer diagonals that goes the majority of that page, I'll end it off and restart it in the next diagonal. Because your tendency, here's the other thing. First of all, I don't like all those extra threads hanging, because then that just, as I said, makes me a little bit crazy. The other reason I don't do that is because if I park it in the adjacent diagonal and say I'll park it in the closest, say, hashtag to where I have just finished, 9 times out of 10, what has happened to me is I may park it in here, but when I get back up closer and I'm coming down the next diagonal, I'm going to have that same color up here further. So then I'm going to start one, and when I get down here to where this one's parked, I end up having 2 threads going at the same color. I don't necessarily want to be down here further on the column, on the diagonal, and then have to run my thread all the way back up to the top of diagonal to get to the first occurrence of that color. Now, if I was one that stitched this diagonal down and then the next diagonal upwards, that might be a little different, but I don't want to necessarily carry my thread those really long distances. And if I park it to a closer occurrence of that symbol, 9 times out of 10, I end up with 2 threads started of the same color. And then that gets really confusing. Then you have to stop and think, oh, is this the same color? And you're double checking yourself, and it just avoids some headaches. So that's what I do. I end off my thread, and I restart them for each diagonal. It just is a lot less confusing, and keeps my sanity a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to get to starting some stitching here. Let's see here. Foster Chicken asks, where do I get my fabric? Because yes, this is pre-gridded fabric. I do buy it this way. And I forget, there was someone else who asked what count fabric I use. And right now I'm stitching on 25. All of my projects are on 25 count, easy count. Sorry, I had a count there. And I do buy that online. I buy it most often because I can get the size of the piece I want, or as I said before, I will just buy yardage. But I normally just buy it right from Heaven and Earth Designs. They carry the full gamut of easy count fabric. They have it in 14, 18, 20, 25, 28, and 32 count, I believe. So you can get whatever you need. You can buy it by the yard if you choose to do that, or you can buy it by the piece. They will custom cut for you, so that is another option for you. I have seen it several other places. I've seen it on 1-2-3 Stitch. And I think they sell it in yard, half yard and yard packs, I believe. Don't quote me on that, because I really am not 100% sure whether they would custom cut, or say if you were looking at buying yardage, for example, would they, instead of cutting, say you wanted, for example, 2 yards. I'm not sure, and I don't know how that works with 1-2-3 Stitch, if they would send you a 2-yard piece if you requested that, or if you ordered 2 yards, if you would get 2 1-yard pieces. So that is something that you would have to ask. I've seen it at ABC Stitch Therapy. And those are the places. I'm kind of thinking I saw it at Needle in a Haystack also, but I'm not 100% sure on that one either. I should have done a little more research on that before I before I made this video, but I'm thinking they did too. But there are several places online where you can get Easy Count. And really any local needle workshop should be able to special order it for you if they have a distributor that deals in Zweigert fabrics, because it is manufactured by Zweigert. And I do like Easy Count. My own personal preferences, I like Easy Count a lot better than I like Magic Guide. Easy Count, as I said, is a Zweigert fabric, and it's really Lugana that has your 10 by 10 grid woven into it. Where Magic Guide, on the other hand, is a product put out by DMC. And those, oops, I'm sorry, I bumped you there. The lines are there we go. The lines are actually stamped on the fabric as opposed to being woven in. So with that being said, they may not always be 100% true. So you want to be careful of that. If I would suggest, try both and see which you like the best. And I'm sure you will develop your own preference. Magic Guide, in my opinion, is starched a lot heavier than the Easy Count. So therefore, it's a lot stiffer. I, for one, don't like the stiffer fabrics. But again, that's just me. That's just my opinion. You really have to try different products, see what you like, what works, and what works for you. Because what works for me is not necessarily going to be what you like. So we each got to find our own. She also asked me about needles, the ballpoint needles. Now, I'm not using one today, but normally I do. I didn't bring them over here in the porch with me today. Yes, they are expensive. You're talking $3 a needle. And yes, that is pricey, and I get that. However, they are totally worth every penny. And when you look at how long they're going to last, and for me, the comparison is a bowhin needle or a John James needle. When I stitch with those, that needle will last me only about 2 weeks at the most. And what happens in that time is my skin reacts with the plating on the needle, and it wears off. And then when I'm going through the fabric, I can see, or not see, but I can feel my needle start to drag, okay? And it's something, you can't see it, your needle looks perfectly fine, but you do feel it. Sorry, I bumped you again. I'm reaching over here, I need to add a color, and That can't, oh, no wonder. It's this one. But you can feel the drag. It doesn't go through your fabric as smoothly as it did when it was a new needle. So those needles are a Bohin or a John James or a Peacemakers or any of those. Really, the most I get out of those brands is about a week. Is about 2 weeks. So think of the cost. If a needle is only going to last you 2 weeks, okay? There's 52 weeks in a year. So really, in a year's time, you're going to use 26 needles. So just say that's a little over 24 needles a year. Okay. 24 needles, let's see. That's going to be, I'm trying to think. When last I bought needles, I bought 100 at a time, and they were $20-some that I had to buy 100. I'm going to say a dozen needles. Well, let's just look here real quick. Heaven and earth. Let's look at their needles. Let's look. Because I think they sell them in packs of tools and accessories. Let's see. Needles. Okay. Here's 25 Bohin needles, for example, are going to cost you $6.10 for 25 Bohin needles. All right. But they're only going to last you a year, roughly guesstimating. All right. Now, if we look at Easy Guide needles, you're going to get a pack of 10. It's going to be, rounding it out, $30 for a pack of 10. However, I bought mine last year, late spring, early summer. Okay? Those needles are stainless steel. Okay? I have not discarded one needle as of yet. I am still using the very same needle. So even though I paid $3 a needle, and I'm going to pay, say, for example, off the Heaven and Earth site, we're going to pay $30. I'm trying to pin stitch here. Sorry, folks. Okay, I'm just going to do an away thread. I'm going to pay $30 for 10 needles. Those 10 needles are going to last me a very, very, very long time. I bought 6 when I bought mine, and I have yet to discard one And it will soon be a year that I am using that needle. So when you put all of that together, yes, it's a pricey outlay. I give you that. But when you look at the long run, over the long haul, the price is really not bad at all. Now, I will say too, and I think I said this before also, they don't tarnish. However, they will discolor a little bit, but it does not affect the quality of the needle. It still glides through your fabric just like it did on the very first day I started using it. Does it discolor a little bit? Yes. However, I have a pin cushion that's filled with black emery. Now, you can also just get white emery, but it's in a little pin cushion, and all I do is put my needle into that and rub it back and forth through the emery, and it shines your needle right back up again. And it doesn't affect the performance of the needle. So my needle still glides just as it did on the very first day that I used it. I don't notice any difference in when I'm stitching with it. It's just the same as day one. So with that, I think, and again, this is just my opinion, I would say give it a try and see what you think. I think they are worth every penny. I don't regret spending the money on them. Like I said before, the only downside I have found to them is when you want to do a pin stitch, it is easier to change the needle because it's having that ball on the end of the needle. You can't pierce your fabric. So you do need a needle with a point or a sharper point in order to be able to effectively do a pin stitch. So I would say to you foster chicken, check them out, get one, try one. Heaven and Earth sells them. There's also a shop on eBay, and all you do is search Easy Guide needles, and you should come up to it. The last time I looked at that shop, it was temporarily closed. They were taking a break. There is another place on Facebook, and it's a Facebook group, and it's called Polka Dot Stitchery, like polka, Polka dot stitchery. And she also sells them, and hers are just a smidge cheaper than the place that sells them on eBay. I think hers, instead of $3 a needle, are like $2.90. They're like 10 cents cheaper. So I would say give them a try. Any one of those places are fine places to get them from. I've dealt with all three and have had no issues. So check them out, and I hope that answers your question. Okay. Now, let's see what else. What other questions did I have? Let me flip my page here. Oh, I have a question for you guys. When I'm over here in my porch, I think I've said this before, I stitch on my Monarch cross stitch stand, okay, which I do totally love. It is by far, in my opinion, the best stand I have ever owned. It's very, very similar to the Mark II stands, okay, but I adore this stand. However, it's in my sun porch, and in the evening, now when I say sun porch, it's a sun porch, but it's an enclosed room. It's a room that can be used all year round. It's heated, and it's just like another room in the house with quite a few windows. Well, actually, when we moved here, it had a whole lot more windows than it has now. We've actually taken some of the windows out because it was just entirely too many. We're down to 3, 4, 5, 6 windows, and when we moved here, it was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was about a dozen windows, so we've cut them in half since that time. But at any rate, in the evening, I prefer to stitch over in my living room with my husband when we watch TV in the evening. All right, but here's my dilemma. I like and would prefer to put my piece on my quantum frame. Okay, and that's what I have this one on. And as I said, we're in my sun porch, and it's on my quantum frame, and it's on my Monarch stand. Okay, now in my living room, because of space and it being a hassle to take my Monarch stand over into my living room, I have a Lowry stand that I use in the living room. Now, here's my dilemma and what I need or would like or would appreciate your help with. Okay, let me find my place here. Okay, what did I just do? 1, 2. Okay, silly goose. You're looking at the wrong symbol. You forgot to cross your... See, this is what happens when I don't cross everything off as I go. There we go. Now we're back where we need to be. Anyway, I do have a large frame adapter for my Lowry stand. However, even when I use that, especially when I'm working on the left-hand side of my frame, as I am doing now. So I'm working on the left, and I have all of this rest of the frame to my right, and I put my large frame adapter on so that it's over here, okay, on this side, and then put it on my Lowry stand. The right side of my frame, even though I have the stand underneath my chair, okay, the base plate goes underneath my recliner chair, and I also have a brick on it. The right side of my quantum frame droops. So my question for all of you is, what do you do to prevent that? Because if I would put my adapter over here so that I have it centered more, I'm stitching over here, and then the arm on the Lowry is in the way and you can't stitch. So how does anyone prevent their frame from drooping? Because I tell you what, another thing I love is I really love these quantum frames, because I really love the fact of how it holds my fabric so tight. It's wonderful. And as I said, here on my Monarch stand, I just adore stitching on this. I can, it's comfortable. I can stitch for hours, even though I have to wear my brace. As you can see, my brace on my thumb. I can still muddle through stitching two-handed and stitch quite a long time, quite comfortably, sitting in the recliner with this pulled right up. It's wonderful. So my question to all of you is, how do you resolve that drooping with a quantum frame on a Lowry stand, even though I do have the adapter? So that's my question for you guys. I'm open to any suggestions, and you can put them in the comments, and I'm willing to try almost anything. So I look forward to seeing what suggestions you people will have for me. Sorry, I bumped you again. Every once in a while I switch to one-handed stitching, because even in this brace, my thumb starts to hurt. So I guess I really should take more frequent breaks, but you know what? Oh, that probably won't be happening, because it just won't be happening, because then I have a lot of stitching to do here. I have this one just started. I have Stitcher's Retreat that I would love. I did some math on how much I have done, and I think from the nearest I can figure, I am a third of the way on that. So I'd like to get that finished within, well, let's say the next year or two. If I don't take a lot of time off from it, like I did when I was making the Christmas stockings, another year and a half should do it. But I don't think we're going to hold our breath on that one. We're just going to give it a shot and see what happens. And I have this one started. I have fractal 6 started, so maybe my next video, what I'll do is I'll show you progress on each one. This one and the fractal don't have a whole lot done, but maybe it's time to do a progress report on where we are with all this stitching and see, so you guys can see how much progress and how much further we have to go on some of these. Oh, let's see, what else did I have here? Ouch. Let's see, doggone thumb. Oh, Joy S. asked about my thoughts on a laying tool. Well, Joy, to be perfectly honest, stitching with one thread, I do not have a need for a laying tool. If you're going to stitch with 2 threads, it might be something that you want to try and want to use. I would say they're really a matter of, pardon me, really a matter of personal preference and to see what you like. And, you know, some people like the actual tool that's a long, thin tool that you hold. Some people use a laying tool that fits onto your finger. I would say it's whatever you want to do. I personally, I don't use one, and like I said, I have gotten to the point where I really don't even enjoy stitching with 2 threads anymore. I will use a count fabric that I can do 1 thread, or I will do it over 1, because my preference anymore is to stitch with just 1 strand of floss or 1 strand of silk. I don't, even though 2 strands, you can do a loop start and all that happy stuff, but I don't know, I just don't enjoy it. I've gotten so accustomed to 1 thread that that's really what I want to do anymore, is just use 1 strand of floss and move merrily along, and that way I am just a happy little camper. I just don't like I just don't like 2 threads, but some people do. Some people also will railroad their stitches when they're using 2 threads. And for those of you who don't know what railroading is, that is when you've already come up from the bottom, and when you go down, you actually split those 2 threads apart, put your needle down through the middle of them, so that when you pull your needle through the fabric, it assists in having each thread of those 2 lay side by side. Again, not something I look forward to doing, and I'm really, again, another reason why I really prefer just to stitch with 1 strand. You don't have to, but just to give you an idea, if this is your 2 strands, when you go down through your fabric, you're actually putting your needle in between them and then pulling it through the fabric, and that's called railroading. So I think they call it, my own logic for why I think they call it railroading is because it looks like you're laying railroad tracks, like your threads are side by side like a railroad track. How to straighten your thread if you have thread that's all kinked up for whatever reason. Again, I don't have any right here. I put mine on Payco organizers, and therefore it doesn't tend to get all kinky on that. Where I do notice it is if I'm using like Gentle Arts thread or Classic Colorworks or Crescent Colors or any of those overdyed. If you just clip the end and you're pulling it off the tag, sometimes I noticed it tends to curl a whole lot. And if you have that curl in, how do you get rid of it? Well, one thing is to have a dampened sponge nearby and just very lightly take your thread over that sponge, just enough to make it damp, and it takes the crinkles out. Another thing you can do, and I have found works really very, very well, and let me just get I'm just going to get a strand off of one of my colors. It's not kinked, but I can show you what I mean. What I do is I will wrap the thread, around my pointer finger on each hand. Okay, so that I have it like this. It's wrapped here, it's wrapped here, and just gently tug it till you, and like snap it a couple of times. And what that does is it actually takes the kinks out, and you get a straight piece of thread by doing that. Just another little trick. There is I forget what they're called, but they're clear, and they have like a sponge part on them that you can wrap your thread around one and then wrap it around the other one and do the same thing, tug it. I found just to wrap it around my fingers is just as easy, and you can tug it, and it's that tugging motion that pulls the kinks out. So again, you can try that, see how that works. Till next time, I'll find a piece of thread that has some crinkles in it, pardon me, and maybe be able to give you a better demonstration of that. Okay, let's see, where am I here? And we'll see how that goes. Okay, hold on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, you did it again, Karen. You didn't mark them off as you went. Okay. Messes me up every time. That's what happens when I talk and stitch at the same time. And I have one last question for you. I was thinking about this as I was stitching the other day, and I looked and I didn't see anything, and thought, I wonder if that's something that would be of interest to people. I was wondering if there was a Facebook group for people that stitched on the diagonal. And I couldn't find anything. Or I couldn't find any. If I typed in, why did I stitch that? Oh, well. If I typed in diagonal cross stitching, I didn't see any Facebook groups that seemed to be strictly about that. And I was wondering, is that something that people would be interested in? And my thought was, it would be an easier way, I think, for me to communicate with all of you and share. I mean, I enjoy and I want and will always continue to share little tips and tricks and stitching on my videos, because that's just what we do. But I was also wondering if people would be interested in a Facebook group, because then more people could participate and hopefully would participate in those discussions, because I am sure there are plenty of ideas and other tips out there that people could learn from and would be interested in besides mine. So what do you think about that? I as I said, I was looking at it as a way to have more people get in on the discussion, an easier way for everyone to communicate, and participate, and we could all learn from each other, because like I said, I am not a professional, and I do not by any means know everything. I don't ever profess to know everything, and there's always something I can learn, and I would enjoy learning stuff from you guys too. So if that is something that you guys would all be interested in, let me know. Put it in the comments. Let me know, and I would be more than happy to start a group and to admin the group for people who like to stitch on the diagonal, or want to learn about stitching on the diagonal, or even are just curious about that. So let me know what you think. And if there's enough interest in that, I'd be more than happy to get one started. And if anyone else out there would like to help moderate that group, let me know, because I'm sure I could probably use some assistance in moderating a group and keeping it. That would be the one stipulation: no bashing. Keep it kind. Everybody's opinion is valuable, and we would want to keep it at that, and not condemning other people or harassing them for something that they're doing that maybe somebody thinks isn't right, because there is no right and there is no wrong in the world of cross stitch, and I would want it to be kept kind. So let me know what you think about that. And now, as I'm looking here, folks, we are at almost an hour. So with that, I think we're going to end that for today. And hopefully I will get it uploaded. And the next time we speak, I will be able to tell you all about the excursion I am taking this weekend. My stitching friend, and actually my best friend, and I are going to Virginia, and we're going to visit another stitchy best friend. And Friday, we will be visiting the Woodlawn Needlework Show. So with that, I'm going to try and take a lot of pictures, because that show is fantastic. This year I did not enter anything. I guess I could have, because I have things that I have stitched in the past that certainly could have been entered, but I didn't get anything down there this year to enter it. Previous years, I have won a first place last year for my Do Bears, and a second place for a piece of Hardanger. And in a year previous to that, I won a second place for a birth sampler I had done for my grandson. So I'm proud to say I have been a previous winner, and hopefully next year I'll have something to get entered into that. So we are going to Woodlawn. I am so looking forward to that. It's always a fun trip for us. And I will try and get plenty of pictures so that we can have a picture parade the next time that we meet. So with that, I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of the week. Enjoy your stitching. And always find your joy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.